TWA was a promotion that basically was the early stages of ECW.
That's really where it kind of started. The hardcore chair swinging type hardcore wrestling really started. Joel Goodhart had a vision to put some shows on like that.
I mean, I think the thing that I remember most about that, which was the Joel Goodhart shows, is they were really wild shows, and they appealed to a lot of people, and they did much better than most of the indie shows in that time.
We used to draw anywhere between 1,500 and 2,000. This is an independent show, and this was with no TV. This was all for wrestling radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we begin our matches, I do want to introduce some people who are sitting ringside. First of all, from Variety Club, Mr. Todd Gordon.
I got involved in the business because Joel Goodhart owned a company called TWA. He had a radio show called Wrestling Radio. It was on every week on WIP. I caught it one day, started listening to it. Had been a wrestling fan since I was 9. I mean, you have to understand, I was addicted to this.
Well, I met Todd at a TWA show a couple of times. Todd had invested some money in TWA.
And I got him Temple University as a locale to do a big show, because all he'd been doing was little bar shows.
Joel put on some great shows. I guess that the most legendary one was one where you had Cactus Jack and Eddie Gilbert doing 3 different gimmick matches.
It was amazing to watch, you know, and most of us crowded around the curtains in the back.
And those guys just beat the hell out of each other all night long.
I've never seen anything like it. I mean, it was, I remember in the back, after the match, they were pulling glass out of Cactus's head. There was paramedics all over the place. Eddie was on the other side of the building actually throwing up.
It was brutal, and there was a lot of intentional and unintentional bloodletting going on in there.
Joel ran some pretty good shows. I think Joel's problem was he started overbooking them.
He just got too big too soon, or wanted to be bigger than he really was.
Paydays for them big shows were steep. They paid us very well back in the day.
I think Joel basically lost his shirt between that and paying for the time for the radio show each week.
Todd called me on a Thursday, and he told me that Joel's going to announce that he's going to go out of business on his radio show. Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, I turned the radio on, and sure enough, the first announcement he made was that he was going to, in fact, fold the promotion. And within a couple seconds, Todd had called me. So he said, "What did I tell you?"
Well, actually, Todd Gordon had invested $20,000 into Joel's company within 6 months before Joel went under.
Myself, Steve Truitt, who was our sound guy, Todd Gordon, and Larry Winters, who was one of the workers. We had stayed in touch by phone after Tri-State had ended, and we decided to meet in Todd's office.
We all sat down and we just started a little game plan on how we were going to start and what we were going to do. And that's how it all started.
ECW started in 1992. At that point, it was just a small independent like any other group. It was basically fly-by-night. Come in, do their show, bring in a couple of names on top, have your local guys who would come in from Tri-State, which was the group that preceded it.
Back in the early 90s, we started as Eastern Championship Wrestling because my thought process was I was only going to do it here in Jersey and maybe Delaware. Well, that's the East. I wasn't going anywhere further than that.
When we sat in his office, he, of course, was going to have 51% of the company, and he divvied up the rest of the company among the other 3 guys. I didn't really want to, I wanted to be paid, you know, so I took the least percentage of the company, but my agreement was that I would be paid every week, because I really didn't think it was going to last long. At that time, you know, I just couldn't see it going to what it turned out to be.
Well, the very earliest ECW was in a sports bar at 8th and Market, Mike Schmidt's sports bar at that time. And it's hard to believe, looking back at those cards, which I went to with regularity, that anything good ever came of that, because the wrestling was bad.
I was in the first ever match in Eastern Championship Wrestling. I remember coming out, I don't remember much else. I remember I looked like crap and I wasn't very good. I had no body. I didn't work out. I didn't know what I was doing. I just wanted to be a wrestler.
What had happened was I was the first booker, and then I had problems with Todd. I'd be home thinking of different angles and programs and, you know, to run, and then he'd call me and say, "Hey, him and Steve Truitt just come up with some ideas," you know? I just knew it wasn't gonna it wasn't going to go anywhere. Just told him, you call the shots, I'll just work for you.
As Todd got more involved with the company, Todd became our booker. In fact, Todd has some great angles. He was really good at it.
I remember specifically saying to Todd, I said, Todd, you're going to need a full-time booker in here. And next thing you know, he had Eddie Gilbert in.
Singing our national anthem, Smashing Pumpkin Zone, Billy Corgan!
I was in Illinois, and I was promoting a show with Jack Victory. Jack Victory and I used to do all the promotions behind the scenes for ECW after Bubba had left to go to WWE and kind of turned it over to us, per se. And Jack and I were out to dinner one night, and he had come to a show at the Odeum. It was a pay-per-view, and it was one of the shows that I was actually off of because the Dudleys had just left. But I met Billy. I knew he was a big fan, and I'm sitting with Jack. I was like, wow, wouldn't it be awesome if we could get Billy into an angle? And it was like that Saturday night we were in Peoria, so it was like 3 nights away. And Jack's like, it's awesome. And we ran some ideas together, and he's like, you should call Tommy. And I was like, before I call Tommy, should I call Billy? And he's like, no, call Tommy, see if he's even interested. So I called Tommy, and I told Tommy, I was like, would we even do this? He's like, yeah. And so I called Billy, and I said, we were thinking of doing something for this Saturday night. Like, are you interested? And I remember the exact comment was, as long as it's not cheesy. Like, I'm not doing like a cheesy wrestling angle. And I said, I promise you, like, it won't be. We'll figure something out. And I remember calling Tommy back and saying, Billy's in, as long as it's kind of like not cheesy and it's him and me, and there's not like, it doesn't get swerved and we all do all this other, everything else. And it ended up that's exactly what happened. And Billy, I cut a promo on him, which was, he scripted basically, told me to go, because I didn't know him that well yet, and he's like, no, make fun of everything. Your band's breaking up because of how big your ego is. You can't sell a record in America worth your godforsaken life. I remember the promo. And then he blasted me with a guitar, and the rest is history.
Yeah, the setup on it was, I was communicating with Tommy, and I said, I don't want to do where the celebrity comes in and throws the weak punch, or I said, if we're going to do this, we'll do it right.
Yep.
So, get there, they bought some cheap shit guitar, and I was surprised to find out that the guitar wasn't gimmicked. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? I'd never hit anybody with a guitar in my life. And they go, you got to blast them. Because if this thing doesn't break, the crowd's going to shit all over you.
Yeah.
And I think it was actually Sandman who walked us through how to, where I needed to hit you.
That's true.
But you got to understand, like, your adrenaline, it's like, I'm thinking, if I miss and I hit this guy, I might really hurt this guy. He's my friend, or at least we're kind of becoming friends.
Yeah.
So I go out, I pretend like I'm going to sing the national anthem. I actually came out with a hood on, and they go, Billy Corgan to sing the national anthem. You hear the crowd go like, yeah, right. And then when I took the hood down, people were like, holy shit, it's really him, right? And so I go, I'm going to sit. And then he comes out with Jack and Carino, right?
Excuse me, the whole network gimmick.
And there was a moment there where they backed me in the corner. Okay, I don't know these guys, and I know enough about wrestling to think, if these guys really want to hurt me, they're going to make national news, and they don't give a shit about me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like suddenly I was like, wait, I don't really know these guys, and now I'm in a ring with these guys. This is their world. This isn't mine. And there's that moment where it's like, are they going to shoot on me? So anyway, all good. Sets up, blast him. Da 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 da. I do it, run it at the end, the bull rope thing, with Jack or whatever,
at the end of the show.
and then climb the ladder, and Tommy's whispering, get your shot, so do the shot at the end with the ladder, and I think good fun. Okay, 2 days later, MTV, Signs of the Apocalypse.
That's right.
Biggest angle ever in ECW. I thought it was just like a fun side thing.
Yeah.
So it got so much play that then Paul wanted to bring me back later in New York. And then we did a thing where he blasted me with the phone from I got a legit concussion.
I was told to hit him, and he knew that, and I think we all knew that. But it had to look good.
I said, if you're gonna hit me, hit me. And who was it? They might have been Sandman, who said,
"No,
You'll know if you guys did hit him right if the crowd gasps."
Yeah.
Like he said, there's a moment, and then. And he hit me, and the crowd went and gasped. But meanwhile, I went like, "Holy shit!" He hit me so hard because we did it wrong. And
we did it right.
PJ, Just Incredible, was in the corner. I just choked him down with the stick, and I was in the Just Incredible pose. And so he blasts me. And later, PJ said, "You were legit hurt on that, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I know because you paused before you fell down." He goes, "You went like this, like, oh fuck," and then you fell down. And so I'm laying there, and I'm like, I hadn't felt like that since I played like Pee Wee football. And there's some ECW fan, "Fuck you, Corgan, your music sucks, you fucking asshole." And so I'm like, I'm supposed to be concussed, and I'm giving him the finger like.
You talk about a phone, like normally when you hit somebody, like push them and hit them, and the phone's gimmicked and it breaks and whatever. There was no push. It was a phone. that was not gimmicked across the
You know, it
back
was
of the
Perry
head.
Saturn when we came
Yeah.
back through the curtain. He said, "You guys did that wrong," and he told us how we were supposed to do it right. Meanwhile, I'm like this.
Yeah.
I go to dinner about an hour later. I'm like passing out, and Mike Spaghetti like. My girlfriend's like, "What's wrong with you?" I'm like, "I think I got a concussion. Let's go to the hospital." No.
I felt pretty bad until the next night. Night. Until the next night when I got my receipt big time, and he hit me. Same thing. I ran in during a match, and it was Carino and I think it was Carino and Justin. Yeah, and I ran in. He came out from behind me with the guitar, but he hit me so hard. Well,
I swung wrong.
Yeah.
The first time I hit him, I came straight down, which is the right way to do it. This time I swung so hard it went more like in a figure eight, and it kind of hit him like this.
It's still up there, the scar. I mean, he edged me, and it was like I was gonna get color anyway, and because Paul and I we weren't gonna tell
Which I
him.
didn't know, by the
he
way.
didn't know that, but I was hard weighed. I was bleeding all over the place, but it was awesome, and that was the thing. Because when you look back at that angle and you think about celebrity angles in wrestling, that was one that we beat each other to death, and it worked because a lot of people they got a lot of press, like Billy said, but it also it wasn't cheesy. It was cool, and it was right into the product that it wasn't forced either. And I think that was really
I had so
important,
much
too.
respect for ECW and everybody in ECW. I wasn't going to take away from the product. If I was going to step in there, I had to play with the team, and I did.
Yeah.
This is what we used to call the loft, okay? And up here, Van Dam, Fonzie, New Jack, they would dress up. This was their spot. It's funny how guys would stay at the same places in the locker room show after show. And anytime we brought anybody in, like Arn Anderson, Bobby Eaton, we'd also stick them up here too, because sometimes different building employees would be in the lower level, or people who really didn't really belong here. So we would keep anyone hidden up here that we didn't want anybody to see.
How charismatic was he before the show, getting ready, thinking of ideas on the fly?
Spontaneous. Paul would sit at that table and you could see his eyes, and he'd be looking around the room. And Paul probably had maybe 2 of the matches already booked, but they may have been the main events, the ones he advertised. And you could see him just looking around. And he'd look over and he'd say, Chris Chetty, get over here. And then maybe look around a little bit more. And he'd say, Balls Mahoney, get over here. And he'd say, you two. And as he went over the match, what really got me about Paul is he would explain the match to him. Paul would actually do the voices and be the characters. Like if Balls Mahoney, say, was going to have a high spot, Paul would actually stand up and say, you're going to do this. And he would use a different voice. I mean, it was incredible just watching him go through it. I mean, Paul lived this stuff. Mm-hmm. Then he would get done with those 2 and he'd start looking again. And you could see he was just spontaneously thinking of matches and angles right on the spot. So you'd have a show with maybe 8 matches, maybe 3, maybe 4, depending if, when we got to television, maybe 4 of the matches were actually, things he wanted to get across. And maybe the other 4 he just thought of spontaneously. And the angles were unreal. I remember one time it was when the FBI were going to win the titles, tag titles. He had the FBI there, and I forget who their opponents were. And it was going to be a match where like 6 or 7 people were going to interfere. And I was involved in it because that's why I was there, referee. So to make a long story short, there was about 15 of us standing around the table. And nobody knew the outcome of the match. And Paul's going through it. You're going to do this, and you're going to do that, you're going to do this. And then Guido of the FBI, you're going to be on top of him, and the ref's going to go 1, 2, 3. So at that 3, everybody standing at the table knew they were going to win the belt. Even them, they didn't know. And when he went 1, 2, 3, everybody stood up and went, wow. I mean, it was almost like a match just took place at the table. The guy was amazing. He had us all hanging on everything he said right then and there. That's how he was as a booker, a great booker. Okay, this area here is a shower area and restrooms. It was actually built for us specially because the first year of the show, if one of the workers had to go out and take a leak, you had to actually use the restrooms outside. Can you imagine you're trying to kayfabe and you're in a restroom with a handful of fans, you know? Hey, how you doing? That kind of thing. So we finally insisted about putting something in here because it's kind of hard holding it for 4 hours, you know? So this was added after we were here for about a year. If we go downstairs, this was the actual guts of the locker room. Paul would have his table set up right here. And this was the booker's table. Paul would sit here with usually Tommy Dreamer, Sabu, or maybe Shane Douglas, and they'd all be trying to book the show, or he'd be getting different insight from other people. We had a food table right here. That's where everybody hung around. And then all the other wrestlers would basically sit around this whole room. The girls would dress. There was a room back here where you have a lot of stuff against the door now. The girls would dress in here. Then this other modern room was finally built for us after we were here for about 2 or 3 years. And Shane, Tommy Dreamer, Taz, some of the guys with, let's say, more seniority, they would dress in this room right here. But most of the guys were in here. And the funny thing about it is, this being Viking Hall, where the mummers would build all their floats, is if you came in here around the holidays, I guess maybe almost from that Thanksgiving on through New Year's, there'd be 10, 15 floats in this room you'd be dressing around. I'm talking about gigantic floats with feathers and all kinds of figures. And what used to be crazy is sometimes the guy on his way out to the ring would think of a gimmick right away. And he would grab a sword off the float, or maybe some kind of a crazy hat, and they would go out with that particular gimmick right off the float that they're going to use for the New Year's parade, a month later.
What kind of guidelines did Butchie set up for you guys for using this building?
Butchie was great. Butchie was really good. Just like today, he made us feel at home. Butchie was like that from the very beginning. He made us feel 100% at home. The only thing Butchie's only problem was tearing the building up. And of course, in the first couple of years, we used to tear walls, put our fists through the walls. I know Road Warrior Hawk, he went through the wall. We had the Harris brothers. They were constantly going through the walls. And Butchie'd repair it, and the next show, we damaged the place again. So Butchie was hot on that. But other than that, he was really great. And the only other thing Butchie didn't want language. Because his employees, he had a lot of young kids that would help us set the ring up and that kind of thing. And the young kids would be in and out of here getting equipment and stuff. And Butchie was really strict on the language. He wanted the guys to kind of watch what they said with the younger kids around them. Other than that, we felt totally at home here. And any improvements we would need, once again, Butchie would try and do for us.
Is it hard to think that there'll never be another ECW show here?
Yeah. In fact, me being here today, this is the first time I've been back here, I guess, since our very last show. And when I came in with John Finnegan today, the two of us looked at each other and we said, man, what memories in this place. Yeah, and even back here, as I stand here now, I can picture where everybody sat, where I dressed. And a lot of memories, I can still picture Paul being here right now, booking the show.
And here we are in Elmhurst, Queens, right outside the, this is a side shot of the beautiful climate-controlled, luxurious Elks Lodge. If you notice the fire escape, this is where a great majority of the ring had to be carried up. I believe the ground floor is, the ground floor of the auditorium is located on the second floor of the Elks Lodge. And so they carried it out of that window and down the fire escape to the infamous truck that would be parked right alongside. Took a long time to do, and I'm sure it was very tedious to do. A lot of the ECW wrestlers who worked the ring crew, they made extra money, and they earned their money setting up and breaking down this setup in this building. Okay, we're at the front of the Elks Lodge. One thing they used to do when they first started running shows here, they had all the fans out on the sidewalk, and it was really a chaotic situation. Somewhere near the end of their run doing shows here, they finally got it right. The way the building is set up, you have balcony seating, and you have seating on the stage, and then you have seating on the floor. You would have the first 3 rows of ringside, which they called Golden Circle. They would stand up here on this porch right here. They would have people who had balcony and stage on this side of the porch, and then all the general admission seats and standing room only seating people would be out here on the street. Now, when they had everybody out on the street, sometime it would spill out here on the Queens Boulevard. Now, for those of you who are up on current events, this is Queens Boulevard, and it's called the Boulevard of Death. Many people have been killed trying to cross the street. It's as wide as many highways. I figure it's about 12 lanes of traffic. And it would spill out into the middle of the street 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, rush hour. People are trying to go home and big buses are coming through. And it was just really a chaotic situation. Surprisingly, no one got hurt waiting to come into a show. And the rumors are true. New Life Fellowship, it is now a church. And at this very moment, they're having a service on the inside, but when it's all over, we were told that we can go inside and take some shots, and I'll show you the whole setup. It's going to be pretty cool, but it is a church. Right now we're inside the Elks Lodge, and if you can hear all the music and clapping and stuff, we're actually in the middle of a church service. We're recording this on Good Friday, and it's actually a pretty joyous occasion. I'm kind of getting into this myself, but I digress. If you look over there, where the young ladies are dancing over there, where the door is, that used to be the wrestlers' entryway. And the window is where the fire escape is that we mentioned. And they would carry the steel beams from the ring through that window and down the fire escape. And you had fans sitting on the stage, and of course up here in the balcony. Sometimes you get some of the workers who'd watch the show. They would stand in that doorway over there. I know New Jack used to stand in that doorway over there, and sometimes in that one over there. The Elks Lodge even had, the way the ECW Arena has a hat guy and sign guy, we had Ass Man. Ass Man was a guy, he weighed about 500 pounds, and we called him Ass Man because he used to always moon the Dudleys. He would sit on the floor over there, maybe about 5 rows back, and people who were sitting up front would let him come to the front row, turn around, pull down his pants, and moon the Dudleys. And I remember when ECW came back after a long absence, Paul Lee said, "I never thought I'd be saying this at any time in my life, but I'm going to say it now. Ass Man, please show us your ass." This crowd's pretty hot. Is ECW louder? Actually, this is pretty loud. If you can imagine the way it is now, but having 1,200, 13, 1,400 people in here being that loud, it was amazing. And like I said, because you're so tight in and close in on everybody, it's hard to describe. Very loud. Very exuberant. ECW pretty much broke the fire code every time they came in, but this is where it used to be. It's not here anymore. There's about 653 people legally. It's not here anymore. So I can't... Now imagine 300, 400, 500 people, whatever, trying to get down the staircase at the end of a show. It's an adventure. This was probably kicked out during the ECW show. Merchandise tables were set up right here. RF Video used to set up upstairs, but that's pretty much it. It was a simple setup, but with the amount of people that they brought in here for an average show, it could have got hairy if something went wrong. Thank goodness nothing ever went wrong. That's pretty much the Elks Lodge.
You know, when we first came to Philadelphia, we bombed. And when I say bomb, we actually bombed.
We did a bomb match. You know about the bomb match? Pat Tanaka and Paul Diamond, the original Bad Company they were called, against the Public Enemy. Loser gets put into a cage on the top of the ECW arena, and there's a countdown, cage supposed to explode.
Well, what happened is we made it up there.
And they go to put Johnny Grunge in the cage. Now I'm at ringside. I'm the guy going, 10, 9.
We got in a cage, we knocked the black powder over.
The cop, who has no business even being part of the act, is like going, yeah, he's pushing Johnny, steps on the bowl of gunpowder. It goes flying across the stage. There's nothing to light. Let's forget explosion. You're not going to get a poof. And I'm going, 6, 5. I'm down. I have no idea this has happened, okay? I'm down at ringside.
So the powder was over, and then the explosion was coming through the speaker, so it fizzed when they lit the powder.
Needless to say, there's a little like that, like a cigarette smoke whiffed, came up.
Of course, you know, that was the beginning of the bullshit.
And the people just pissed all over it. And I'm going, 1, go! Psst, nothing.
So we thought we were through. We thought that our career was done after that.
Injuries that I've worked through, injuries that I've had. Any. Let's start from the top to the bottom. Cracked skull. End result, lost my sight for about 6 months. Sight came back in my left eye, 85%. Sight came back in my right, 5%. So I'm legally blind in my right eye. Broken collar. Cracked sternum. Broken ribs. This is getting good. You know, on the base of the security railing, there's it's like a triangle like that, but they're metal pointed tips to the floor. I fell on one night, and it pierced through my pants. So I'm working Mustafa. He grabbed my leg. He had blood on his hand. He said, "Jack, you bleeding?" I said, "No, I'm not." He said, "Yes, you are." So then I felt it, and it was blood. So we get in the back. I pulled my pants down, pulled my singlet down, and my nuts were split wide open. And it pierced right through my nutsack. It didn't hurt until I saw it. So now the medics come, ambulance come, they put me on a stretcher, and I'm walking out like I'm fucking pregnant, with my feet up in the air, and they actually had to stitch up my nuts. Okay. Broke this leg 3 times. Got my ankle fused. The worst one was the last one, which was a compound. For those that don't know what that is, it's when your bone goes through your meat and it's exposed. So now the medic is trying to pull my boot off. My bone is snagging my boot. And I'm like losing it. And he sees blood on his hand, so he cuts my boot off. And about that much of bone was sticking out through the meat in my leg. I had a chain in the ring one night and I was swinging it around, acting silly. And I hit it on the mat and it popped back up and hit me in the mouth and broke all 4 of my teeth across the top. And I'm sitting in the ring with a mouthful of broken teeth. And I had to actually work through the match. I came out the ring. We ended the match quick. Came out the ring and spit my teeth in my hand. And I had to wait until Monday to get them fixed. I did a dive one night on Jack Victory. I'm probably the first and only wrestler ever had this happen. I dove and my nuts hit the corner of the table. And my shit swelled up. So I go to the doctor. He said, we need to x-ray it. They had to x-ray me from the waist down. He comes back and he says, Mr. Young, I don't know if you ever had this or not. He said, but you have what we call a fractured penis. So my shit was turned. It was crooked. So I'm like, so you gonna put a cast on it? And he said, it has to heal itself. You know what I mean? So he said, and he said, if the tissue don't mend back together, then we have to go in and cut it and pull it back together. But it healed itself back. But it still kind of points that way.
Well, what were those locker room meetings like when he would tell you guys, oh, hold on? Like what?
Well, I mean, when we was coming to the end, he was like, listen, you know, I'm going out to LA to do another deal with a company out there, and I'm not coming back until we have another TV deal on the table. In actuality, he was going out to LA to film that movie Rollerball. He already knew that the ship had sank. We was still sitting there floating on fucking, you know, just, bobbing back and forth in the water, like, well, maybe he's gonna come back and get us. 15, 20 days go by, and we still out in the middle of the ocean. Maybe he's gonna come back and get us. And then a shark comes up and snatch one underwater, be like, oh shit, maybe he's not. And then the shark comes up and snatches another one. He's like, oh, where's Paulie? Now you look on TV, he's on there with Vince. And then 2 more go in the water. Then he starts to call people and say, if you go and work for anybody else, you will lose the chance of coming to work for ECW when Vince starts it back up. 2 more sinks, and then they bring everybody back and squashes them. They asked me to come, and I was like, I'm not going because they wanted the ownership to my name. So the rise and fall of ECW, I was barely included in it because they shitted on me so fucking much, and I stood up, well, they tried to, and I stood up for what the fuck I felt. So I guess, as they call a screw back to me, is when they went over to Vince, then they took all my shit out. So everything that he has of ECW, I'm not in, except for 24/7 on demand. You know what I mean? So Vince is a dickhead, and Paulie was, I mean, I used to always say this thing. I said, Vince is like the biggest pimp in the world. You know what I'm saying? I said, in the workers are the hoes. The ring is the track. You understand? And when he done worked them hoes, just like a pimp, when you work that hoe and she got 100,000 miles on her pussy, he'll throw it to the side and get him a whole new crew of hoes. Until he worked them and they ain't no good no more, then he'll throw them to the side and bring in a whole new crew of hoes. And that's exactly what it's like. It's like being pimped. Well, I was one of them pimps that say, look, I was one of the players in the game. I'm like, I ain't gonna get pimped. So I do my own thing on my own. And that's what the fuck I did. My biggest memory of ECW, my biggest moment that I will always cherish was my fucking action figure. I was like a mark when I saw my own shit hanging in Best Buy. And no, Toys R Us. And I went in there and I saw like 30 of my action figures. So I pulled all of them off the rack and put them in a buggy. And I went up to the counter and I asked the girl, I said, does this look like me? She was like, no. I said, bitch, this is me. She said, no, it ain't. So the manager knew me. I said, get the manager. So he came, he was like, New Jack, what's up? And I held the action figure up and I looked at it, I was like, fuck you. And I bought them, and he gave me like some of them, and I bought them, and I left. That was one of my biggest moments in ECW. Fuck a match. I mean, you know, fuck carrying them belts. I didn't want no fucking belt. I didn't need a belt. People like Taz needed a belt. You know, They needed belts to get them over. I didn't need shit but a trash can. And let my music keep playing through my match. And that came up one night when me and Paulie was talking. And I said, let my music play through the match. He said, why? I said, it's like an extended fight scene in a movie. And the fans would get so used to it, and they would just bite on it like a, you know what I'm saying? And that worked. So we stayed with it for the rest of the time I was there.
Final question is, what do you think the legacy is of ECW? How it's remembered?
It's remembered from South Philly originals. We created the hardcore. See, ECW wasn't just chairs and bats and bricks and sticks and bottles. And I'm gonna only say it. I ain't gonna say I'm gonna only say it, but I'll say it because he just walked in the room. Okay. But when you see people like Stevie Richards, Stevie wrestled. You understand? I want my money when this DVD come out. See, Stevie wrestled. Okay, they did wrestling. So it was like a 3-ring circus. You had your Stevie Richards that wrestled. You had your drunks like Sandman. You had your cocaine heads like me. So I snorted a fucking damn near 2 8-balls before, from the time I got off the plane till the time I went. Sometime I'd be sitting behind the fucking curtain and my music playing, I'm doing a fucking and go through the curtain. That's why I would come out looking like I had a fucking deer stuck in headlights, because that fucking coke was just kicking in. And that's why I run around the goddamn ring so fast, so quick, and so fucking long, then go in the back and lay down like I was about to have a fucking heart attack. And then one night I got in the ring and I had a fucking Visine bottle in my pocket and I had put water and cocaine in it, and I fell out and went up on the ring and got caught and did that up under the ring and came back out and tried to swing it fucking Saturday, and everything just went numb. I was like, maybe I'm about to fucking die. So I went to the heart doctor and they kept me and they said, oh, I won't ask how much cocaine you've been doing over the last few years, but he said, I won't ask what you've been doing, just about how much. He said, you've developed scar tissue in your heart and you now have an irregular heartbeat. So they shocked my heart and it stopped for like 5 seconds, and then they shocked it again to start it back. But you had to sign a fucking waiver that says, just in case your heart don't start back beating, we ain't responsible. So I was like in a gray area. So I'm like, all right, motherfucker, I can't apologize but once, but please start back. So I went through that like 3 times. So I've been on heart medication ever since. And the doctor told me, he said, stay away from stress. So every time I would get involved with a bitch that got on my nerves, I'm like, your ass is stressed. Get the fuck out. You know, shut the fuck up. Don't argue back. You stressful. That's why I've been single so long. You look on my Facebook page, I got a new bitch every week. And I'll plaster her ass all over my Facebook wall. Just look at my bitch. And then 2 weeks later, look at my new bitch. And the motherfucker be like, Jack, how you switch up bitches so quick? I said, I got a 2-day period of mourning. And that's packing my shit. And after that, fuck her. They find another one like the other one and get the fuck on. And that's how I've lived my life. That's how I've gotten to be fucking 50 years old and I still got half of a fucking brain left.
Well, thank you, Jack.
You wanted the truth, goddamn it. You wanted the bullshit.